If you watched last week's video, you'll know that I went over all of the things to consider when choosing which state to move in the United States. That's something that I personally had to go through because after living in London for the last 3 years, we have officially moved back to the US, but we also knew one thing for sure: we were not moving back to California, which is where we're from and all of our family is. So in today's video, I'm going to go through all of the same points that I kind of talked about in last week's video, but this time I'm going to explain how each one of these factors helped us narrow down our decision and ultimately choose where we wanted to live. And make sure you stick around until the end because I'll reveal the exact city we ended up moving to. So the main things we looked at were taxes, weather, cost of living, public schools, crime, things to do, and culture. Those were the big categories that kind of helped guide our decision. When we first started this process, imagine the entire map of the United States with all 50 states on the screen, because that's basically what we were dealing with at the beginning. And honestly, it was super exciting, but also incredibly overwhelming. There are so many different places you could live in this country and they all offer something different. So figuring out where to even start narrowing things down, it was just very daunting. The first thing that really helped us eliminate a huge portion of the country was weather. Being from California, I always thought it would be fun to experience all 4 seasons. When you grow up somewhere that's basically sunny and 75 degrees most of the year, the idea of cozy fall weather, snowy winters, and colorful autumn leaves sounds really appealing. Then we lived in London for 3 years, which definitely has more seasonal weather than California, but after actually experiencing that kind of climate, I can confidently say that I am not an all 4 seasons kind of girl. I'm definitely a sunny and 75 year-round kind of girl, and I am really glad that I got to experience the seasons in London because, again, it was something that I had always been curious about and always wanted to experience. But living with gray skies, cold winters, and long stretches of cloudy weather made me realize it's just not something that I would want for the rest of my life. So right away, that basically eliminated the entire upper half of the United States. I knew I did not want to deal with snow, like, at all, and I also didn't really want to live anywhere that got extremely cold or rainy for long periods of time. So again, that immediately crossed off huge regions like the Midwest, the Northeast, and most states along the Canadian border. So just by looking at weather alone, our list of possible states got significantly smaller. Once we narrowed down the map based on the weather, the next thing we looked at was overall things to do and the overall lifestyle of the area. I'm definitely someone who loves being outdoors. I love being in nature as much as possible, being around water, paddleboarding, going on walks, hiking, and just generally spending time outside. So I knew that I wanted to live somewhere where that kind of lifestyle was easy to maintain. At the same time, I didn't want to live somewhere that was completely remote and like off the grid. I still wanted to be close to a big city with lots of amenities, restaurants, events, good hospitals, of course, entertainment, and access to a large airport. Those are all things that were really important to us. On top of that, we wanted to live in a state that had multiple major, like, big cities, because that just creates more job opportunities for my husband and gives our daughter more options in her future for things like going to university or jobs without having to move too far away from us. When we started thinking about it this way, that eliminated a few more states that either didn't really have large cities nearby or didn't have the type of outdoor lifestyle that we were really looking for. Then we moved on to cost of living. Of course, everyone wants a lower cost of living if possible. Coming from California, we were used to extremely high housing prices and just generally high costs for everything. So we knew right away that California was not even an option for us, but cost of living also kind of goes hand in hand with things to do. If you purely chase the absolutely cheapest place in the country, you're probably going to end up living somewhere super remote with not much going on. And that might work for some people, but that's not what we wanted. We were trying to find a balance where the cost of living was well below our means, but the lifestyle still matched what we wanted. And after going through all of those factors, we eventually had things narrowed down to 4 states that just kept coming up again and again during all of our research. And those 4 states were Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and North Carolina. At that point, we were looking at specific cities or suburbs within those states, and we just kept going back and forth because each one has so many pros and cons. Every time we thought we had made a decision and we'd settled, we discovered something new, and then it would make us reconsider and switch to another place. For example, we absolutely loved the Raleigh area in North Carolina, specifically suburbs like Cary and Apex. Those areas are beautiful, family friendly, and have a lot going for them. But one of the reasons why we ultimately ended up eliminating North Carolina was because it still had state income tax. And since Texas, Tennessee, and Florida did not have state income tax, that just meant that our money would go significantly further in those states. So once we eliminated North Carolina, we were left with those 3 states I just said, Florida, Texas, and Tennessee. And when you dive deeper into taxes and other hidden costs, things start to look a little different though. Even though Texas, Florida, and Tennessee all have no state income tax, each state makes up for it in different ways, right? Texas is known for having extremely high property taxes that wouldn't affect us immediately because we knew that we would be renting for a few years before we decided to buy a house. But eventually, we do want to buy a house. So that is something that you need to look at because those property taxes, long term, they can really add up. Florida, on the other hand, has more moderate property taxes, but we noticed something else when we were looking at homes there. Nearly every single house or townhome we were interested in had extremely high HOA fees. These were monthly homeowners association fees that cover things like community maintenance and amenities, but they can easily add several $100s per month to your housing costs, and that will never go away, even if you pay off the house, of course. And Tennessee was interesting because it has extremely low property taxes compared to most states. So on paper, it looked like the clear winner financially. If the goal was purely to stretch our money as far as possible, Tennessee seemed like the best option, and that was very appealing to me because ideally I would love to be a stay-at-home mom for as long as possible without feeling financial pressure to go back to work right away. So we started seriously looking into suburbs around the Nashville area, but very quickly we discovered something important, and there's actually a reason why Tennessee has such low property taxes. For the most part, the public schools are ranked very low. And when I say low, I mean really low. Most of the highly ranked schools in the area were magnet STEM schools that students have to test into, which means there's no guarantee that your child will get accepted and get to go to those good schools. The other areas with great schools were places like Franklin, where the houses were all around $1 million, aka way out of our price range. And that's kind of just when we had a bit of a realization. Public schools and safety are usually connected to property taxes because those taxes help fund the school system, and areas with higher property taxes tend to have better funded schools and safer neighborhoods. So once we kind of realized that, Tennessee no longer felt like the clear winner to us, so we just kind of eliminated Tennessee and went back to comparing Texas and Florida. At that point, we started researching the specific suburbs we were interested in. In Florida, we were looking around the Tampa and St. Petersburg areas, and in Texas, we were looking around the suburbs of both Austin and Houston. When we looked at the public schools in those areas, honestly, they were all ranked really highly, which made us feel so much better about both of the options that we were choosing between. But then we looked at one final factor that I didn't mention in last week's video, but ended up being the final thing that kind of just made our decision. If we were choosing between the two suburbs that both had no state income tax, great weather, lots of things to do, and strong public schools, we asked ourselves one simple question: what do we get for our money? We knew we wanted to rent for a few years before buying a home, and ideally we wanted our rent to be around $2,000 per month. Eventually, we are hoping to buy a 3 or 4 bedroom home, and we are hoping to keep that under 400 grand. And both Florida and Texas technically had a bunch of options within both of those price ranges. But when we actually started looking at the homes themselves, there was a very clear winner. In one state, the homes were absolutely stunning. I'm talking renovated houses that look like they came straight out of a home design magazine. Gorgeous kitchens, modern finishes, beautiful floors, everything updated and huge, like bigger than you would even expect. While in the other state, for the same price, we were mostly seeing small ranch-style houses from the 1990s that hadn't really been updated at all. So, drum roll please, that clear winner was Texas. And once we made the decision, it honestly felt amazing. We had spent months going back and forth between all the pros and cons of different states, different cities. So finally just settling on Texas felt like a huge weight lifted off our shoulders. And from there, we just kind of had to choose between two areas we loved: the Woodlands, which is right outside of Houston, or Round Rock, which is right outside of Austin. Ultimately, we chose Round Rock. We actually lived in Austin a few years ago before we moved to London, and we absolutely loved it. I think deep down it had always kind of been in the back of our minds during this entire process. It's the only place besides California that we have lived in the US, and we had such a great experience there. We love the outdoorsy culture, paddleboarding on the river, the endless walking trails, the warm weather, the amazing food trucks, music festivals, and just the overall vibe of the city. Austin is just amazing. But we wanted to give everywhere a fair chance because now we have a child, and we knew that our lifestyle would look very different than when we lived in Austin before. We also knew we wouldn't be living directly in downtown Austin like we did before, and we wanted to make sure that that place we chose for our forever home really made sense for our family and the stage of life that we're in now. And after being here for a few weeks, I can honestly say it already feels like home. Ultimately, when you narrow down your options to just a few locations that all check your most important boxes, things like weather, lifestyle, cost of living, schools, safety, all the things I've been talking about, you probably can't go wrong. I'm sure we would have been happy in any of the places that we seriously considered, but it feels really good to call Austin, Texas our home, and I'm so excited to start sharing more of this beautiful city and state with all of you. So make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of life here in Austin, Texas, and what it's like living back in the United States after not only living in the UK for 3 years, but after spending pretty much the last 8 years living abroad in places like China, Vietnam, Prague, and then months upon months of backpacking around the world. Setting down roots for the first time is exciting, but it also feels a little bit strange after the life that we've been living, and I'd love to have you along for the ride.